Hello all, welcome back to Time to Dice Character Creation, where we make your favorite fictional characters in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Today, we're making Warwick, the tragic beast of League of Legends. Before being made into a man-beast hybrid, Warwick was a Zaunite gangster with a heart of gold named Vander. After Vander was killed protecting those he loved, he was subjected to experimentation, turning him into the abomination that he is today. While a fragment of the kind man and caring father that Vander once was may still remain, it's buried beneath feral rage and an unrelenting need to hunt. So beware of spoilers, and without further ado, let's get started. So what do we need to create the uncaged wrath of Zaun? Well, first, we need to become a living weapon, complete with jaws and claws that can slash and tear through enemies better than any blade ever could. Next, we need to wield fear itself, striking terror into even the bravest warriors and sending them running in panic. And finally, while we may look like a werewolf, our fighting style is actually more vampiric in nature, lunging at our prey, draining them dry, and using their life force to restore our own. For our Ancestry, we may be out of the month of non-human builds, but just because we can make a human does not mean we should. Warwick is much closer to a flesh warp, especially after experimentation, giving us 10 hit points, a medium size, and a boost to both strength and constitution. We also gain low light vision, perfect for navigating in the dim industrial streets of Zaun, and the chem tanks grafted onto Warwick's body are wreaking havoc on his physiology, granting him the unusual anatomy feature, gaining a +1 circumstance bonus to all poison and disease checks. We get a 25-foot movement speed, and we're going to pick up the Shape Rot Flesh Warp Heritage, which gives us resistance to mental damage equal to half our level. Both Warwick and Vander have been through so much mental trauma already that any new psychic intrusion will just have to get in line. Although one may be tempted to give Warwick a background like Criminal or Magical Experiment, we're going to give it a little bit more mundane, with the Barkeep background, to reflect his life as Vander before the experiment. This background gives us a boost to Constitution and Charisma, as well as training in Diplomacy, and most importantly, access to the greatest skill in the game, alcohol lore. We also pick up the Hobnobber skill feat, letting us gather information in half the usual time. Warwick might not seem like that much of a smooth talker, but Vander was pretty much the only thing keeping Zaun and Piltover from tearing each other apart. I don't think we're going to surprise anyone when I said the animalistic rage monster is a barbarian. What might raise a few eyebrows, though, is that we're going with the Blood Rager archetype. That's right, we're putting magic on this angry boy. Blood Rager barbarians are similar to the standard barbarians in most ways. We get 12 hit points per level, start with expert proficiency in perception, fortitude, and will saves, and only trained proficiency in reflex saves. The big difference lies in our starting skills. While regular barbarians only start with training in athletics, Blood Ragers get athletics and medicine, because knowing how to effectively remove a foe's blood is technically a skill. We'll also pick up survival to track down our prey, and intimidation to coat them in a nice tasty layer of fear before we strike. From there, we fall back in line with standard barbarian proficiencies, simple and martial weapons, and up to light armor. For our ability scores, we'll max out strength with a +4 for the most devastating hits that we can muster. Dexterity is at a +1. Warwick is fast, sure, but he's a big heavy guy, and all that momentum doesn't exactly make for graceful turns. Constitution comes in at a +3. Warwick takes hits from just about everyone in Arcane and walks away none the worse for wear. Intelligence and Wisdom are both at 0. The father who knew when to lay down his weapons may still be in there somewhere, but the glimpses we get of him are few and far between. And finally, Charisma is at a +1. Your days of bartending may be long gone, but you're still a force of nature when it comes to intimidation. All of that brings us to level 1, where thanks to the Blood Rager class archetype, we don't need to pick a subclass, because we're already locked into the Blood Rager instinct. While raging, we deal extra persistent bleed damage equal to half of our rage damage bonus. There's also a little rider effect that says if we ever cast a spell that requires a spell attack roll, we add our rage damage to that. But we're a barbarian. We don't have any spells. That's probably not worth remembering. Speaking of rage, it's probably a good time to explain what that is, considering how many times I've said the word so far. As long as we're not fatigued, we can spend an action to enter a rage. While raging, we get temporary hit points equal to our level plus our con modifier, and we get +2 damage on all non-agile melee weapons and unarmed attacks. The trade-off? We can't use any action with the concentrate trait. Now, if you're thinking, spending an action just to rage sounds kinda slow, Paizo must have agreed. That's why we also get the quick tempered feature at level 1, which lets us rage as a free action the moment we roll initiative. We also get 2 feats at this level. First up is Sudden Charge, which lets us stride twice and make a melee strike for just 2 actions. That's the movement half of our Jaws of the Beast ability. For the literal Jaws part, we'll take the Living Weapon Ancestry feat, giving us a 1d6 piercing unarmed attack with a versatile slashing trait, so that we can use all that extra rage damage with just our teeth. At level 2, we're required to take the Blood Rager dedication, giving us 2 cantrips from either the Arcane or Divine spell list. Oh, so that's why the level 1 feature talked about spell attacks. My bad for brushing it off. Looks like I owe you a rewatch. Don't worry, go back and watch it again. I'll wait. You back? Good. I used that time to consider it, and we'll be picking up Gouging Claw, a big 2-action spell that lets us slash hard and causes persistent bleed damage. Perfect for those dramatic finishers. We're also picking up Class Shield, which lets us block an incoming physical attack with one of our chem tanks, raising our AC, and potentially dealing retaliatory piercing damage if that shield breaks. This dedication gives these spells the rage trait, so we can use them while we're raging. However, each time that we use one of these spells, we increase our drain condition by 1, losing both hit points and maximum hit points equal to our level. And the only way to remove the drained value is to use the Harvest Blood action. Speaking of which, we get the Harvest Blood action. If we've just hit a creature with a piercing or slashing melee attack, we can drink its blood to reduce our drain condition, gain temporary hit points equal to our con modifier, and get a +1 staircase bonus to saves against that creature's effects. Just keep in mind, recovering from drained may boost your maximum hit points back up, but it does not heal your lost hit points. So, your spellcasting is very much a high-risk, high-reward tool. Use it with caution. To round out our level 2, we'll be picking up Intimidating Glare, letting us demoralize enemies with a look alone. No need for threats or witty banter, which makes sense, because if Warwick terrifies you, it's probably not because he said something clever. At level 3, we'll pick up the Toughness General feat, bumping up our hit points by an amount equal to our level, and lowering the DC of recovery checks. If you thought Warwick was going to be one of the rare builds without toughness on this channel, you might want to go for Arcane Rewatch. Level 3 Barbarians also get the Furious Footfalls feature, giving us +5 feet of movement, and +10 feet while we're raging. Pro tip, hunting your prey goes a lot smoother when you can run them down. If you thought our spellcasting was maxing out at cantrips, do I have news for you, because at level 4, we're picking up the Rising Blood magic feat. This not only gives us access to our next 3 spell ranks over the coming levels, but it also modifies the trade-off we get from casting those spells. Now, whenever you cast a spell while you're already drained, we increase the rage damage done by that spell by a whopping 1. Okay, so it's not a huge buff, but it's a buff nonetheless, and when you're a monster held together by tubes and fury, you take every edge you can get. For our brand new first rank spell slot, we have a few juicy options. You could go with Endure, giving us 5 temporary hit points, which is slightly offset by increasing our drain condition, but it still does provide some value, especially when we start casting in higher ranks. Or we could grab Flints, which lets us make a spell attack roll and quite literally rip the flesh from an enemy's bones. On a hit, they take slashing damage, and on a crit, that damage doubles, and if they're living, they start taking persistent bleed damage, but if they're undead, they become enfeebled 1. Not bad, right? Still, none of that compares to the true star of level 4, the powerful leap skill feat. You heard me. We can jump 5 extra feet. I don't know how Paizo thought they could get away with such a powerful feat at such a low level. We might as well stop this build right now because it will not get any better than this. But we're not going to do that because we have a lot more to cover. At level 5, we pick up the Mutate Weapon Ancestry feat. For just a single action, we can augment our Jaws attack, either adding 5 feet of reach for a powerful lunge attack, or get a +1 status bonus to all attack rolls with our Jaws until the end of the turn. The reach is cool, but let's be real. Warwick likes to get up close and personal with his prey, and that +1 is almost always going to be the play. But we're not done yet. Level 5 also unlocks Brutality, increasing our weapon and unarmed attack proficiency to Expert, and letting us apply our critical specialization effects while raging. For our Jaws, that means on a crit, our target must make a Fortitude save against our class DC or become slowed 1. Nothing quite says panic like bleeding out in an alleyway in Zaun while being unable to get away. One of the big weaknesses of this build is that all the spells are melee ranged. That means casting them usually opens us up to reactive strikes, and while we can afford to take a hit, being the beefiest class in the game and all, a critical can disrupt our spellcasting, and that might be a problem. Until level 6. At level 6, we pick up the class feat Blood Calls Blood. Now, if a spell that we cast would be disrupted, we can instead increase our drain condition and cast it anyway. It's also great against conditions like Stupefied, where you have to pass a flat check to cast. But to help us resist those mental conditions in the first place, we'll grab Terrifying Resistance. This Ancestry feat gives us a +1 circumstance bonus to saves against any creature that we've demoralized within the last day. Intimidation and Survival all in one big package. At this level, Rising Blood Magic also unlocks our second rank spell slot, and we've got a couple of options. Blood Vendetta is a reaction spell that we can cast when someone hits us with a piercing, slashing, or persistent bleed damage, letting us make a retaliatory strike that deals persistent bleed damage of our own. Or we can pick up Horrifying Blood Loss, targeting a creature that's already taking bleed damage, so hopefully everyone, and making them make a will save or become frightened by the sight of their own entrails. On a failure, they can't reduce that frightened condition until the bleeding stops. But if we have it our way, the bleeding won't stop until they do. At level 7, Barbarians get a host of upgrades. First, our Instinct specialization kicks in, doubling our rage bonus damage from +2 to +4. Stack that with Weapon specialization, which adds yet another flat damage bonus to all attacks that we have expert proficiency in. Things are starting to look real painful for anyone in melee range. We also pick up Juggernaut, bumping up our Fortitude saves to Master, and turning all successful Fortitude saves into critical successes. If you're keeping track, at this level we're now tankier, bloodier, and even harder to kill. But not everything is just handed to us. We also have to make some choices of our own. At this level, we'll pick up the Adopted Ancestry General feat, so that in the future we can pick up Ancestry feats from the Vesk list. And if the idea of Starfinder Ancestry feats showing up in your Pathfinder build is throwing you off, well, you can check the comments for some alternate feat paths. At level 8, we pick up the class feat Bespell Strikes, which adds an extra d6 of damage to each of our strikes after casting a spell. You could just stack this up with a heavy hitter attack like Flint's for 2 devastating actions in a row, but I recommend pairing it with a spell like Horrifying Blood Loss to lower an enemy's defenses first. That way, your follow-up strike has an even better chance of critting, which means doubling that extra damage. We'll grab the Intimidating Prowess skill feat to let us use our massive strength score for a bonus on our demoralized checks. We're already letting our muscles do all of the talking, so we might as well let them do the scaring too. Our 3rd rank spell slots unlock at this level, and we're grabbing 2 strong utility options. Jump gives us some serious battlefield mobility. For a whole minute, we can spend an action to leap up to 30 feet vertically or horizontally, say goodbye to difficult terrain, and hello to terrifying aerial pounces. And Haste pushes us into a little bit of a blood frenzy, giving us an extra action each turn that we can only use to strike or stride. Level 9 is all about that flavor, and that flavor tastes like blood. We'll finally make use of the Adopted Vesk Ancestry to use Blood Sense, granting us an imprecise blood sense that can detect any creature that's not at full hit points. Meaning if a creature tries to turn invisible to get away from you, well, they just wasted a spell slot in addition to 2 of their actions. We also get 2 defensive boosts. Reflex Expertise, giving us better saves against things like Fireballs and Dragon's Breath, and Raging Resistance, which lets us resist slashing damage, persistent bleed damage, and any damage from the last creature that we harvested blood from. That resistance is equal to 3 plus our con modifier, which is pretty significant at this level. Alright, we've waited long enough to get our Primal Howl ability. At level 10, we pick up the Terrifying Howl class feat to demoralize everyone within 30 feet with a single action. And we follow that up with the Terrified Retreat skill feat, so that any creature lower level than us that we critically succeed against with that demoralized check just straight up flees for a round. When used together, these 2 abilities can very easily clear out battlefields. Level 11 brings us to Battlecry skill feat, letting us demoralize a creature as a free action whenever we roll initiative. Sounds great until you realize you can't trigger 2 reactions off the same action, so you'll have to choose between using Battlecry to demoralize a foe or Quick Tempered to get all your rage bonuses in every combat that you roll. Quick Tempered will probably almost always be the way to go, but don't worry, we're not picking up this feat for now. We're picking it for the glow up once we reach level 15. Once we hit Legendary Proficiency in Intimidation, we'll be able to demoralize a foe for free every time we critically succeed on an attack roll. At that point, this turns into an absolute menace of an ability. At level 12, we grab what might be the most action-efficient feat in the game, Furious Sprint. This lets us compress 5 strides into 2 actions, or, if we really want to go all the way, 8 strides into 3, as long as they're all in a straight line. So, sure, it's a bit situational, but on big maps or in chase scenes, or when you just need to hit that squishy backliner right now, it's a game changer. We also grab Quick Coercion, letting us coerce someone in just 1 round instead of a full minute, because like any good monster, Warwick is the scariest the moment you see him, not after a casual chat. At level 13, we're going to pick up the Advantageous Assault Ancestry feat, adding extra damage to all of our strikes against creatures who are either taking persistent bleed damage or are frightened. Luckily for us, that's basically the 2 main things we do, so this feat is tailor-made for us. We also get some important proficiency boosts. Weapon Mastery upgrades our weapon proficiency to Master, Medium Armor Expertise bump up our armor proficiency, and Greater Juggernaut boosts our Fortitude saves to Legendary, and treats all critically failed Fortitude saves as failures, as well as halving the damage that we take from any failed Fortitude saves. Surging Blood Magic at level 14 unlocks 2 more ranks of spells, and increases our rage damage by 2 when we're at least strength 2. Plus Quick Jump lets us do high and long jumps as a single action, no running start required. For our rank 4 spell slot, we've got a couple of options. Mountain's Resilience basically gives us solid damage resistance against any physical damage that comes our way. And Vampiric Maiden lets us drain a flow's blood, heal ourselves with said blood, and hold an opponent down all in one spell. Sure, the range of this says 30 feet, but we're going to ignore that. Warwick wants to get up close and personal anyway. At rank 5, we unlock Blood Feast, which does massive damage and grants us temporary hit points equal to half the damage dealt for a whole minute. And Flowing Strike is a slick combo of mobility and offense, moving us up to 50 feet, and then letting us make a strike that deals 2d10 extra damage and pushes the target 10 feet away in the direction of your choice. So scratch what I said earlier, it's actually a combo of mobility, offense, and battlefield control. At level 15, we pick up the Fleet Feet, adding 5 feet to our movement speed. Who doesn't want to chase down their lunch a little bit faster? Alongside this, we get greater weapon specialization for a damage boost, and Indomitable Will, bumping up our will saves to master and treating all successful will saves as critical successes. At level 16, Desperate Wrath adds that classic cornered animal vibe to our barbarian. When our turn begins and we're below half of our maximum hit points, we can use this action to get a +2 bonus to all attack rolls, both with our jaws and spells, at the cost of a -1 penalty to our AC and all saves, reflecting our reckless, desperate fighting style. And Cloud Jump at this level turns us into the ultimate basketball player by tripling our long jump distance and allowing us to high jump as high as our previous long jump. It's the perfect mobility boost for hitting the battlefield at unexpected angles. And since I ran out of spells to fill our new 6th rank spell slot, we'll backtrack for a couple of other spells that we missed. Fear forces 5 creatures within 30 feet to make a will save or become frightened. Honestly, most people should probably be scared of us without magic. But hey, rules are rules. And the Vampiric Feast spell makes creatures attempt a fortitude save or take void damage, with us gaining half of the damage as temporary hit points for a minute. This is similar to the earlier Blood Feast spell, but since it uses a basic fortitude save instead of a spell attack roll, it's more reliable, doing damage even if the target succeeds their saving throw, even if that damage comes out to be a little bit less. At level 17, Improved Blood Sense upgrades our Imprecise Blood Sense to Precise Sense, extending the range to 60 feet. This means if an opponent is taking bleed damage, we can detect them even if we're blind, just like normal perception. And speaking of perception, Perception Mastery increases our perception proficiency to Master, while Revitalizing Rage lets us gain temporary hit points whenever we go into our rage, even without waiting that usual 1 minute cooldown. This might seem minor since we already have tons of sources for temporary hit points, and can summon more with just the Endure spell, but that's just a testament to how good the blood magic is at getting hit points back. At level 18, Exultant Blood Magic unlocks rank 7 and 8 spells, and doubles the spell slots that we already get at every rank. Unfortunately, there aren't many official spells for these top tier ranks that I think particularly fit the character, so feel free to pick whatever you want, or use heightened versions of your lower level spells. The real game changer here is if we're at least drain 2 when casting a spell, we double our rage damage bonus, meaning massive damage output and maximized healing from our blood drained spells. And if an opponent does manage to get through all of our hit points, we pick up the Too Angry to Die skill feat, letting us demoralize an opponent for free as we leap back into the fight once the healer finally patches us up. At level 19, Die Hard lets us survive even if we reach dying 5 instead of the usual dying 4. It's not flashy, but it can save your life in those clutch moments. We also get Armor Mastery and the Devastator feature, allowing us to ignore the first 10 points of an enemy's physical damage reduction, perfect for tearing through even Victor's metal body. We've been dealing with a drain condition this entire game, so I think it's only fair that for our capstone feat, we let others start feeling it too. At level 20, we pick up Vicious Evisceration, letting us make a single attack using 2 actions, and if it hits, the target becomes drained 1 or drained 2 on a critical hit. And finally, we cap this build off with the Scared to Death skill feat, brightening enemies so intensely that their hearts simply stop. As long as we critically succeed at an intimidation check. And they critically fail a will save. And they're lower level than us. And this has the Concentrate trait, so we can't use it while we're raging. But if all of those conditions are met, then they will immediately die. And that's a wrap for how to build Warwick in Pathfinder 2e. From brutal melee strikes to devastating spells fueled by rage and our own drained life force, this character blends raw power and arcane fury like no other. Whether you're cleaving through enemies or draining their very essence, you'll dominate the battlefield with raw power and ferocity. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss another build guide. Got questions or want to see another character next? Drop a comment below. We're always excited to hear what you want us to tackle next. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep rolling high and we'll catch you in the next one.